G'day, hobbyists, and welcome back to The Hobby, the podcast where we explore all things related to hobbies and passions, from trading cards to everything pop culture and everything else in between. As always, I'm your host, Dean Alsop, and joined by my right-hand man, the Colonel.
What is going on, Dino? What is going on, hobbyists?
How you been, my friend?
I have been well, but more importantly, how have you been post-Treasure Cup? Let's talk about it.
So for those of you that don't know, Treasure Cup is a one-piece tournament. They do them online and like in stores. It's kind of like the one below regionals.
And Dean, did you play in the most recent Treasure Cup?
I did.
And how did you go?
I think I went 1-4, 1-3. It was 4 rounds in the end, not 5, and I won 1 and lost 3.
Yeah. Come on, man. What is that?
Yeah, look, in my defense,
not the right spot, but we'll take it.
There is no defense. That's the point. No, look, since regionals, I told everybody, like, I was working on this one deck and I played it at regionals and it went well, but not as well as I wanted to go because I made some mistakes about not practicing against myself for a mirror match. And ever since then, I've literally been running a different deck every week. And I'm doing that again this week because we've got like off meta night. So, it is what it is. Like, people were still running RP Lore at the store Treasure Cup, which is like the strongest deck, and it's about to be banned, like literally like in a week's time or something, from the recording of this episode. So, and I was playing Bello Betty, which is like completely off meta. Like, it's not a deck that was going to win that tournament. I was just having some fun.
The prizes mustn't have been too good because I feel like if there was good prizes in, you would have taken it really seriously.
You get a specific promo that sells anywhere from like, it usually starts at like $400, and then after a lot of the events have happened, because more are available, the price comes down. I think now it sits at about $150. So, still, you pay $25 for entry, you can make $100 plus by winning it, which isn't a bad night out just playing games that you love, of course. But today is not about me and my average appearance at the store.
Below average.
Treasure Cup. Below average. Yep, very much below average. Today is a guest episode. We have a really good friend of mine that I'm stoked to have on. We're going to have some really interesting talking points. I think it's going to be fantastic and everybody's going to really enjoy it. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Kernsey, we've been pretty privileged with a variety of guests prior to today's episode, and I'm really, really excited about today's because today's guest is a little bit closer to home, only just around the corner from me here in Melbourne, a good friend and making some waves in the online TCG community. He's got his own group. He's just started his own content career. He covers a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to sort of dive into it now because we're going to dive into it over the next hour. It is my friend, my brother, Charlie Zucala from Cardonomics. How are you, bro?
Good, thanks, boys. How are you going? Appreciate you having me on today. It means a lot that I can join you guys on your podcast, doing a fantastic job. So,
thanks, man. Thank you. And nobody will really know until we put this out there and say that, but we've just gone through about 45 minutes worth of technical issues. So appreciate your patience more than ever, bro.
That's mate. So we better make it quick.
Look, you've you and I sort of come across each other's radar, I'd say probably like only 6 months ago, but I reckon, I think we'd even spoken before that, like maybe a year ago, but we'll probably dive into it more, but you've sort of recently gone full time into the whole TCG thing anyway, haven't you?
Yeah, correct. I've been floating around for at least 10 years now. So like probably all of us, we started as a hobby, get into collecting. I gravitated a bit more towards investing after. It just come naturally to me, and it was something that I enjoyed. So, now I married the two together and started a business doing it full time now. So, yeah, pretty excited about the way things are going and where they're heading. And like you said, you meet so many good people, when you do this. So, yeah, just another, legend I met along the way. And now Lee, I'm sure he's a good bloke, and I'm sure we'll catch up one day and get to know Lee a bit more. But yeah, it's just...
I don't know, man. Colonels, the Kerns, you just want him like dribs and drabs.
Yeah, fair.
I met him like 2 years ago and I haven't been able to shake him. And
yeah, we'll find out, mate. I'll let you know. I'm an honest bloke, so I won't hold back.
Thanks for joining us today, Charlie. I want to know a little bit more about young Charlie, the collector, I know we're really excited to talk about what you're currently working on and what the hobby looks like for you. But as a kid, what did you used to collect?
Yeah, basically Pokemon, like probably a lot of us, around that. I'm 35 now, so I used to get up, before school, get up, watch Cheese TV, watch my Pokemon, my Digimon, my Dragon Ball, whatever else was on, and that was just it. And that happened for years, and I played the games, red and blue version when that come out. I was a red version guy. I loved me Charizard, so yeah. And I guess you kind of, you like that as a kid. You kind of get away from it when you're growing up because you're into other things, but then. Yeah, like you gravitate back towards it, and I think Pokemon are very good at bringing out those nostalgic sets that, get everyone talking about it again, and it drags you back in time and time again. So yeah, I was one of them that got dragged in a couple of times again, and now, yeah, privileged to do it for my full-time job because I enjoy the hobby, so...
Yeah. The full circle story, bro. I reckon we all sort of, especially, I'm 35 as well. So like a lot of people in that, early to mid 30 age bracket that are in the hobby right now, all kind of say the same thing. Like it was Cheese TV before school. Absolutely loved that. Didn't miss an episode, like, every day. And then we were the generation that got to grow up with Pokemon in particular. And then, yeah, like you said, you get to a certain age where you've got other priorities, usually adolescent priorities, I guess, is where I'll leave that. And then, you want other things, right? You don't want shiny cardboard. And then you get back to, where we're at now. And actually you said something in there, Charlie, that other guests hadn't mentioned, or other, collectors that I've spoken to and that is that the Pokemon company do a really good job of reinstalling nostalgia in what it is that they're doing, and actually drags you back in. And you look at like Evolutions as a set, that was one for a lot of people that say that's what brought them back in, because they basically reprinted, base set that we all had as kids. And now you start to see it with 151 or 151. It's kind of happening all over again. There's new people that are in the same age bracket that might not have come back in, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago of Evolutions, and now 151's bringing them in. So it's the old TCG circle of life.
Oh, look, Pokemon do it best. So, again, they know what they're doing. We can, argue that they print too much of something, or they don't include certain cards in sets, and you hear everyone whinging, but, they're the best of the best. They know exactly what they're doing, and that's why, from what I do, I like to look at data. I don't like to look at opinion. So that helps me make better decisions with what I do. So, yeah, we can talk a bit more about that later.
Yeah, well, that actually leads me really well into the next question, and that was, how did you get started with the investing and collecting sort of side of trading card games? Obviously coming from the same collector, video game player, cartoon watcher like the rest of us, where along the journey did that sort of creep into you and how you viewed the hobby?
Well, I reckon I got back in around Evolutions, like you said. That was one of the ones that dragged me back in. And even back then, it wasn't as apparent back then about the investing side, and I wasn't really like something that was speculated on per se, but there's still a lot of action going on. There's still an opportunity there. So that was my first taste of like, all right, no, I like these things. They're collectible. It brings back childhood memories, but you can actually make some money here. So that was my first little taste. And obviously, I did do the whole sold in and I'm over it, and I'm quitting, and I sold everything, and I sold my base sets to Neo sets and all the good stuff I used to have, which, I'm spewing, and I'm sure people have those stories that, they sold their things that they had that are now worth a fortune.
Right there with your brother.
Again, and then got sort of back into it a couple of years later, and that's sort of the COVID, period happened. And, back then I was running my own businesses. I had a lot of spare money, so I'm like, I need to do something with this money. And it just made sense to do something I enjoy. So, I threw a lot of money back into Pokemon, and we had the whole Logan Paul COVID scenario. So that's when it really became a speculative asset, and, people started sort of coming in, for the right and wrong reasons, but it just allowed me to do what I enjoy, like two things, and, that I enjoy, and married them together right now to be a full-time job and do content on. So, for that, I'm grateful. But again, like, people might look at me and say, oh, the investor, and he's no good for the hobby or whatever I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. But, whether I'm there or not, it's going to happen. There's opportunity there. That's what I want to shine a light on. But I do love the hobby. I love meeting people as, like yourselves. And, that's what really keeps me going. It's not really the money side of things, but I do enjoy both, aspects of it.
We all still need to make money, right? At the end of the day, especially when it's a full-time gig. But you, like you mentioned there, I don't think many people would look at you and be like, oh, that's the investing guy, especially now with their CT scanning company over in the US, right? So they're taking a lot of heat off a lot of different people anyway with all the stuff that's going on there. I might ask you about that a bit later on. But I think what we're going to do now is just dive into because the big thing we're going to talk about is obviously the investment side and the strategies and your experience and your success you've found there. But before we do that, I know you're just about to start dipping into the content creation world. You've already done some really cool content. I'm a supporter, a subscriber, a fan. We're mates. Of course, I'll back you. So we just wanted to sort of lean into that first and see how, where you're going with that.
Yeah, so again, this was probably last year. I ended up in Europe for 6 months with the missus, so I had a lot of time on my hands. It was sort of just going there and just to relax and see the country, and I had a lot of time on my hands to figure out what I was going to do next, because prior to that, I had about 3 years off work during COVID. It kind of devastated my car sales business. So instead of staying on a sinking ship, I sort of took some time to myself and just to figure out, a lot of questions I had of what's going on. And, I wanted to understand, more of that, not just the investment side, but why these things are happening and how it impacts markets and stuff. It really got me asking a lot of questions. So during that time off, I dove in, I studied a lot, and I had that sort of time in Europe where I come up with Cardonomics. So it's basically, trading cards and economics, and I'm trying to mix the two together in, something that's digestible and, people can, enjoy the watch and also learn something. So a lot of what I do is data driven. I like to take the emotion out of my decisions, and I like to show people that, okay, if you do look at data is pure. It doesn't have an opinion. It's just raw, numbers that tell you a story. And it's up to me how to interpret that data. And again, I can't predict what's going to happen, but it helps you make a better informed decision on what could possibly happen and play the odds in a sense. So it's more about the probability of something happening, and that's what really helps you make decisions. And that's what I just want to shine a light on, and I hope my content does that, and I'm sure I'll get better over time. But yeah, it's basically how it started.
Because your content as well started out as articles. You basically, you sort of, your first platform that you put yourself out there on was writing articles about everything that you just mentioned there. And then I guess at some point the Facebook page came into it, and that's seen some pretty rapid growth over the last couple of months. Because I reckon I'd only been in there for maybe 6 months, and I've seen your memberships just shoot up in terms of that. And then now, most recently with your YouTube channel, you've started to obviously put out, this video and audio sort of content. Are you going to drop off, say the articles, because, it's one of those things the balance of content creation with all your other responsibilities is always going to be really tough. And we know that, other things that we were doing prior to this podcast have started to take a back seat, and because you can't put everything into everything, it just doesn't work like that. So is your plan with your content now moving forward to be more the YouTube channel? Is that what you're going to start pushing and punching? Is that the go?
Yeah, I think at the time, I just got back from Europe. I actually sold my house prior to that. So basically I had nothing to really come back to. So I was in a bit of a limbo mode where I wasn't quite settled anywhere. So the articles was just something I could do at the time and get something out there and sort of build an audience. But, when you look at the data again for consumers, we really watch and listen, not many people like to read. So naturally I wanted to progress to that. But at the time it was just something that I could do at the time. And I just got what I could out there. And yeah, obviously the YouTube stuff and TikTok is where, you're going to get a bigger audience and probably heard more. So that was always the plan. So yeah, now I'm giving that a crack, and hopefully I can reach more people. So it's just basically the natural progression of where I was.
I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying it. You're doing all the right things. You've got some of the best thumbnails in the game. I told you that the other week. They're absolutely hilarious. We're going to link all your social media and stuff in the description anyway, your YouTube channel. So definitely get around and sub to Cardonomics because, it's a bit of fun.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
I love hearing you talk about this current journey that you're on at the moment. 2016 coming back in with evolutions, the articles, the YouTube, the economics. You're kind of creating this little ecosystem bubble of things that interest you and things that you love about it. You mentioned you're a collector, but the invest in content creation. What differentiates Cardonomics from other creators out there and what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's the way I look at data, and it's how I marry the two together. So no one really looks at the trading card market or cycles, within the larger cycles that actually will impact the smaller ones. So to have the ability to look, beyond and sort of step back and look from, somewhere a bit further out, let's say like zooming out is what people like to say. You can actually see things kind of before they're going to happen because there is constant patterns that tend to repeat in the economy. And when the economy is good or bad, it does affect, risk on assets, which is how I categorize, collectibles. So I guess with my audience, like I don't expect, big numbers. I'm not chasing numbers. I just want the right audience. So I've always been pretty big on just growing something organically. I don't really look at something as like, I don't want, hundreds of thousands of people that aren't interested in my work. I just want people there that want to be there, that, want to learn, want to have a bit of fun. So yeah, like that's the kind of direction I've always taken it in. But yeah, I just think it's a bit different in that sense.
It is, man. It is. I will happily back up what you've just said based on my own experience within your group, and just, sort of what happens in there in terms of community engagement and everybody sharing deals or things that they've found, and just the discussion threads that happen in there, and obviously all the other tidbits that you've put together in content, whether it be your written form or your video form, and you put out there. It really is. It doesn't line up, or it doesn't stand next to anybody else that I'm aware of, especially within our communities down here in the Southern Hemisphere that does the same thing, brother. So I'm loving it. That's why we wanted to have you on, so we can talk about it, and we will deep dive into it shortly. But leading off that, I guess you kind of really answered that question, to be fair, because I was going to sort of dive into, what type of content do you want to focus on and you hope to bring to your audience, but you've gone and answered two questions in one question, which is great in terms of time. So
I can elaborate further if you like. We can keep going if you want.
Nah, it's all right, brother. It's all right.
Before we move on, what I will say is, I think looking at your current setup and your background at the moment, I love the authenticity, and there's real merit there. You go on and watch your videos on YouTube and the things that you're talking about, and then you look behind you and you can see sealed cases of booster boxes, and it's, for me as someone that's listening to your content, absorbing that, it's really reassuring to know that you're actually following the stuff that you're talking about. And I know as content creators, sometimes we can come across like real challenges in terms of like the content we're putting out there. Have you experienced much of that so far?
Well, I think having credibility is a big thing. So, and again, there's nothing against people that want to go out there and give like content creation a go, but I think you need to walk the walk. And if you're going to talk about, doing things in certain, whatever aspects of investing or running a business, you should be able to have that sort of data to back it up, to say, look, I've done it. These are the challenges, or this is how I was successful. I think that's a big thing. So for me to do this full time and to grow a business as much as I did, like, again, I don't brag about things, but I do it more as a data point and just to show people what I'm capable or what is doable in the industry. And, from sort of January to my first 6 months of trading, I was able to sell $1.3 million worth of product, from something new to there. And again, that's a good achievement for me, but it also gives me a lot of data. So if I want to, go and do something on that, well, I can tell people, all right, this is what worked, this is what didn't, these are the challenges I face. Because at the end of the day, I want to be able to, show people and improve their skills and their knowledge and how they look at things, because that's what I'm all about. Like, to me, it's never, like, money's secondary. I want to actually put some like decent content out there that is educational, because I think that's where, you know, a lot of the stuff lacks. It's not too, you know, the education side of things isn't too like prevalent in this industry. Like there's a lot of general advice and there's a lot of general stuff, but there's not a lot of people that put out really, really good content in the education space. So I wanted to change that. Yeah.
No, and I think you are. I really think you are. I will preface that, like the Hobby Podcast puts out educational information in our news segments and whatnot. But no, I definitely think, yeah, that's setting you apart straight off the bat from anybody else, because it is a cutthroat industry in terms, especially in the online sort of space. You see that with Pokemon booster boxes all the time. It's like a race to the bottom, you know, of who can sell. Everybody's just trying to, you know, move their product. So yeah, it's actually quite refreshing to have somebody like yourself out there going, you know, utilize this information. Let me, you know, assist you through the form of content, educational content. And this is how, you know, you can take your business from this level to that level. So I do applaud you, brother, for really doing something that nobody else has done. Yeah, I'm loving it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Not just, yeah, again, touching on that, like it's something that, again, I enjoy it. I love helping others. Yes, and you're going to get people out there that sort of think that I got bad intentions, or, you know, kind of put a target on my back for doing what I do. But there's always an intention behind it. You know, if I'm going to sell something cheap, you know, it might not always be about, you know, actually making a profit or being too profitable, but the exposure I get from it, especially early on, is the lesson in that. So I think people always miss that step, and it's, you know, people focus too much on the money. But when you're trying to build something new, especially in the Pokemon space, when there's so much competition, you just need to try and find that edge and get up there or get seen any way possible. So, but yeah, that does put a target on your back. And I did sort of come up the ranks pretty quickly, and not many people, or not a lot of people probably didn't know who I was, because I stayed in the shadows, you know, for so long, but I was always around. I'm just a bit more public now. So
Batman over here.
Batman. Yeah, he actually lives in Gotham, not in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We're going to start peppering you with some questions more relating to investing now. You know, you may have some answers, you may not. I think you'll probably be able to answer everything, to be fair. But it will give us, it'll probably just give more of an insight to things that you've been through over your journey. So again, it'll be what you want it to be. It'll be very educational for the people that get to listen to this episode. You know, kicking it off, what are some trends you've noticed recently in the TCG market?
yeah, because I'd sort of deal worldwide, and which is another big advantage. You know, like if the market's poor, you know, in one region, and it could be firing in another, so I can take advantage of that. And what I noticed, probably the biggest one, is the Japanese market sort of collapsing. You know, Pokemon's had an issue there where that wasn't accessible, you know, for the next generation, which is the children. So they just started printing the hell out of everything. And like, you can't really, you know, plan for that. But then you've obviously got your sets like your 151, which, you know, as of today, has gone up like 35-40% from a few days ago. So yeah, just like keeping an eye on these markets and sort of planning your head is what I try to emphasize. And, you know, always write out my plans of what I'm doing. And again, I don't do it so you copy me, but it's just like, you know, it gives people an idea on how to, you know, create a plan and stick to it and not let the emotions sort of get the best of you. So I think that's been the biggest, you know, thing of the year, the Japanese market. And again, that's why, you know, I do that sort of AUD yen charts, because that's a main, you know, contributing factor to the end price when you import. So yeah, it's been a good one for me. I've really enjoyed watching that. So
we'll lean into that for the next little bit as well, because that is something that has made, that is content that I've seen you put out there that some people have taken and used it, you know, to better themselves. And it's one that other people have questioned and gone, well, you know, what difference does that make? If you want to just elaborate a bit more on how you compare the two and why you do and the benefits you see from that, I think that's great value.
Yeah, again, it's just something I enjoy. So it's a bit different. It's kind of, you know, going off track a bit from your standard TCG sort of investment sort of content. But when you do import Japanese product, or you know, buy and sell it, I think it's it's one of the main factors of what the end price is going to be when you import. And, when I chart, it's never, it's not 100%, it's not guaranteed. It's just me looking at, prior patterns or past iterations and seeing what the most probability outcome could be based on, how the economic situation is now and how it was in the past and how the two could compare. So again, it's just data analysis. It's something I really enjoy. And look, sometimes it does play out and sometimes it doesn't, but it can still, add, it's another tool on the belt, let's say, to add to, help making decisions or more informed decisions when we, invest or import product. So again, it's just an extra thing that I enjoy doing, and I just put out content I enjoy. Some people resonate with it and some people won't, and that's okay. I'm not here to please everyone. So yeah, that's basically why I started doing that.
I like that you said that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because I can't pick them. I can't pick them in terms of why cards go up and down, why sets go up and down, why is an Evolving Skies, sealed booster box case what it is versus a Battle Styles. When the sets come out, the sets look great. Okay, cool. Sometimes you might know the card list is a little bit stronger than others, but then sometimes you have like Silver Tempest just flop. So can you explain to me what some of the influences into those and why we see some cards and some sets just skyrocket and others maybe tank?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us are blinded by sort of our personal opinion or what we love. So we can be blindsided by the actual data and what the majority really sort of want to put their money in. And with Evolving Skies, you can see now, data in Pokemon especially is getting a lot better and we're collecting a lot more. So you can actually make better predictions, or, you have a better idea what's going to go on because of the data. Whereas before, no one was really doing this. So I use PokeData.io a lot because they kind of have sort of the most data or the best setup for me. That you're able to chart stuff and see real sales of certain products. And you can basically just go there and see where the value is. So if you look up, Evolving Skies, it's, say off the top of my head, $5,500 to complete that set in Aussie dollar terms. And then you look at a Silver Tempest, might be $900. So if you're going to get in on a set, at say Ground Zero at retail, let's make a number, say $180 at the time. Well, obviously, people are, putting their money into Evolving Skies more, hence why the prices are so much. So that for me is going to be a better bet long term. And again, they all go up over time, but you can see which sets are going to take off more than others. But again, you don't know, but that's how you can make a better educated guess when there's so much data out there now and we can look at it rather than go with our opinions or emotions at the time, or look at the negativity or the euphoria that's going on in the markets and go with that. We should really just, get that emotion side out of investing or even collecting. Entering into a product cheaper is still going to benefit a collector. So
Evolving Skies in particular, do you think that, that set it's people are putting their money into it and it's being driven purely just because of the cards and the species that are in there though? If you take out, the Rayquazas out of it, because, they're not their biggest money cards, but they're still up there. Does that set still do as well as it's doing? Obviously, you take the Moonbryon out. Yeah, of course, because that's the most hyped up modern card of all time. But do you think that each set, because I always thought when Silver Tempest came out, and it's great that you mentioned that one as well, I was like, Lugia is so popular, and that is its best artwork that they've ever given it, because most of the time it gets done over, other than Crystal Lugia. A lot of Lugia artworks are pretty much dunce cards, just looks like a big seagull. But that one in particular, it looks insane. So I assumed that, maybe that set would also be somewhat desirable, but it's still kind of just trickling down at the bottom, and you've got other ones like, Chilling Rain, sitting above that has a Calyrex alt art in it. Who cares about that? It's so hard to really sort of understand exactly why certain sets are doing better than other ones.
Basically what I said before, and one thing you can point out about Silver Tempest is that it was the last set to come out, the last core set of Sword and Shield, so it hasn't had enough time in the market, to sort of marinate and work its magic. So time is a big factor with, sealed Pokemon. And, with sets like Chilling Reign, obviously it's had more time in the market. The set value to collect that set's almost 2.5 times more than Chilling Reign. So all that value is going to be captured. Those singles make up a lot of the value of the sealed box. And this is why I'm a sealed collector or a sealed investor, because if a card goes up in that set, then my sealed box captures that. And it is on the other foot as well. Like if something goes down, then it may go down a little, but it takes out the guessing games of which single card's going to go up and which ones are going to go down. So that's why I like it. And you also have a diminishing supply of sealed boxes when they stop printing versus, the single cards are going to go up in population as more get opened. So both dynamics work in the favor of sealed.
An interesting counter to that then is CT scanning and what's going on in that area, because that basically completely changes the game, right? I'm not saying that right now that you're sitting there and you can send off your cases over to the US and get them scanned, right? Because that's just impractical. It's not going to happen. But this is new technology. It's only 75 US right now. As that technology develops and increases and expands its footprint over the planet, that will become more regular. People do not open WotC boxes now and basically don't weigh packs. They'll open them and sell them as unweighed, and then when you get them as the collector, you're going to weigh them, or somebody's going to weigh them at some point. At some point, that happens. You know what I mean? So in the future, at some point, CT scanning, it's here. It's apparently been going on for years and years and years behind the scenes, and now this company's just come out and said, well, we'll actually just let you guys have at it as well as the regular punter. So what do you think that's going to do to the sealed market? It wasn't really sort of on my sheet, but just with what you said, I think it's a good time to kind of discuss that.
Yeah, so like you said, it's been going on for a long time already, but it's just sort of come out into the open and people are aware of it now. And, firstly, just, touching on something that I'm pretty big on is news. When news breaks, people react. So it could be happening for a long time. So the effect is really been there the whole time, just people haven't known about it. And I think that brings an opportunity in the space, because I'll touch on what you said more into depth about how CT scanning can affect it moving forward. But, the effect on that can have on a market can bring an opportunity in the space. And that's what I try to highlight. So when people are panicking and selling off stuff because they think it's, going to go to zero, or the value sort of diminish because of that's going on, that's me sort of swooping in and seeing what I can pick up, because look, people have short memories. Yes, it's going on. It's still going to keep going on. It's just going to come down to the viability of getting something scanned and, the chances of them actually getting more value out of that scan than what it's worth, which it's not going to be a big array of products. Single packs might get hit harder because it's easier to scan a single pack. But I think booster boxes, you really sort of, you're grasping at straws in terms of the viability of seeing what's in that box compared to what you're going to get out of, the cost of doing it and the time and whatever factors, going to go into that. So yeah, look, I just look at it as an opportunity. I think people are still going to buy stuff regardless. And I think it's going to come down more to who's reputable. Can we trace that stuff back to, the main source where we can sort of rule out that sort of stuff going on is going to become prevalent. So yeah, just something else to deal with. We've had weighing, we've had search packs with flashlights. This is just the next thing that's come to light.
Yeah. I don't think it's something that's going to go away. I think it'll be discussed and it's going to form a part of the hobby moving forward. And I think at some point manufacturers will have to step in and create some kind of barrier or way to know if something has or hasn't been scanned, and then it is what it is. But I think I agree with you on every point for the current state of it right now.
Yeah.
What advice would you then give to, or what advice do you give to someone? Because I'd imagine you'd probably have a number of people that sort of reach out to you and go, hey, look, I've been a collector, or I'm in the hobby, or I do this, and I actually want to really start taking the investing part serious. What sort of advice do you give someone that's looking to do that?
Well, the number one rule is manage your risk. That's what I always emphasize. So don't go in there thinking that you're going to make a bunch of money. So you want to protect your capital first. So always make sure that that's your number one priority. So, and you do that by entering into products, at their sort of lowest point. And then it's just really a patience game, especially with Pokemon's easy mode. Like if you look back at all Pokemon sets, have all gone up no matter how good or bad they are. So if you just have that plan, and you always got a year or two to accumulate, sealed boxes. So look at that risk factor first. You're going to get in at retail or lower. You can basically buy a Pokemon at, wholesale or just above prices. There's always some sort of sale going on, and they all appreciate over time. So that's probably where I would start, because obviously like higher end stuff or things that have already appreciated are at a higher risk of dropping in a downturn. So again, we can touch on downturns later, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's a cycle that keeps repeating and has done for a couple hundred years now. So when we go through a downturn, on the wider economic sort of scale, it's going to impact Pokemon cards, and the ones that have gone up, the most, are going to get hit the hardest, because how much can something drop when you bought it around wholesale, which is it's not going to. We're just not going to have as many buyers or demand at the time. So
if I came to you and said, "Hey Charlie, should I buy this PSA 10 Moonbryon or should I buy this case of Scarlet and Violet base set? Which one are you going to tell me to buy?"
I'd buy the base set.
Yeah. That's and I'd agree with you. I'd agree with you on that. But more often than not, it's the other side of the coin, because you can't really flex a sealed case of Scarlet and Violet base set, can you? But you can show your buddies your PSA 10 Moonbryon that you've got that, everybody's hyped up about.
Well, you can. It'd be like wearing an old boombox back in the day, you can just have your case on your shoulder and...
like back in the 90s with a boombox just cruising around the streets. Like, yeah, this is SB01, bro.
That's it. No, but on that, like, obviously look at populations of cards. And again, that's another data point people can look at. How many is out there? If it does come time to sell and people are in panic mode and they need to sort of get some money for the more essential things in life, well, that's a lot of Moonbryons that can hit the market at once. Whereas, SV base, like, no one's hoarding it. Everyone thinks it's the worst set. And that's just, that's just opportunity. Yeah. Well, that you just look back at the other base set, like Sword and Shield's the most recent one. Like, it's not the best set. Not many people like it. But then when people come to finishing off their collection and want to find one, they're paying $450, $500 for one. So if you bought them at, $160, $180, well, you're doing pretty good.
I know this has been a journey for you to date. What are like some of the things that you can recommend in terms of maximizing return? Because I know you've spoken about like not being impulsive in a downturn or when there's noise. What are some things that have you found that have really maximized your building of your collection and your investment to date?
So the best thing you can do is when you have high conviction in a product, like we said before, if you can see when Evolving Skies came out, you can see the value, you can see the popularity, you can see the demand, like, there's still plenty of time to get in, and they're the ones that you'll go harder on, because at the end of the day, the entry point's the same for every set, except the opportunity might, be less because more people are buying it. So that window of opportunity is going to close quicker because the product's getting eaten off the market. So when you got high conviction in a set, you want to put more of your economic power or more of your money into those sets, but you still can't really rule out, other sets because you just quite don't know when they're going to pop. And if you've got a plan, well, when any particular set, either goes out of print, out of stock, which is going to be a different time to others, that's an opportunity you can take advantage on. Whereas Evolving Skies might still be either, marinating, still hasn't gone up yet, or it's already gone up to a point where the risk is getting too high to buy. So it's just about having more options to take advantage of opportunities, and especially the FOMO sort of, fear of missing out moments where things start going up is when people like to buy, and that's the most liquid time to sell. So there's little, 2-week windows, everyone wants it. You might not get the top, but, if you've got, say, 30 booster boxes and you want to sell half your position, well, you want to really take advantage of that, opportunity and, profit and still have a bunch of boxes to hold up, which is the perfect scenario for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of leads me into the next question in just, are there specific strategies or approaches that you would recommend for maximizing your returns and building out that valuable collection. You've basically sort of outlined that there to a degree. Can you expand on it any further?
I think that's the main thing. But again, if you want to invest, you really got to separate yourself from the collector. Because as a collector, you're going to be very attached to items, like your emotions there, and you really attach to things. So the advice I can give there is an investor buys more than one of something. So if you had 30 Evolving Skies boxes, you're more likely to let those go at the right times because you're not attached to 30 boxes. You might want to keep one or two. So I think that's where collectors really struggle to let go of things because they might only buy a couple or one. And like when you're really attached to something, it's very hard to let go. And then you might end up letting go of that when you need money. So that's the difference, I think, between, distinguishing yourself, from collecting and investing. You can be both, but you really got to leave the emotion out of the equation when you invest. And you really got to recognize what the two are. So it's okay to sort of do both. But if you want to invest in a product, again, if the budget allows, buy more of that thing you have high conviction in, so it's easier to let go when the time comes, and always have that plan ready to go. And you might not get it right the first time, but it's all about making those little tweaks and learning from mistakes or things that you could have done better. And if you stay in the long market enough, you're just going to get better. It's just time in the market.
So Charlie, sample size of one here. My investment journey in Pokemon, I've always just bought what I want to collect. I've always just collected what I like. I've never looked at it from an investment standpoint, besides one product. And it was a sealed case of Hidden Fates ETBs. And I bought them back before Hidden Fates had its real resurgence, probably 2.5 years ago. And they sat in my cupboard, and then I opened about one ETB every fortnight. And that sealed case is no longer there anymore.
Okay.
It's because you're a collector and not an investor. That is as clear cut as it is.
If I'm faced with a similar situation down the track where I have a sealed case of something, what your little on my shoulder, what would you say to me? Don't open. How would you tell me not to open that case? Because I can tell you that a bottle of wine and a Hidden Fates ETB chasing the Zard is fun.
I think it's the access, and it's the out of sight, out of mind. So if you can keep that somewhere out of sight, maybe, even better, like away from where you live, like you kind of just forget about it. But like with me, there's so much going on. Like I don't even know what I've got. Like I can go through some boxes and just like, I don't remember I had that. Or like there's so much stuff here now. So that really keeps me busy. But yeah, like if you just got something in there you want to hold on to, just keep it out of mind, out of sight. Trying to think about it, and just always think like there's always going to be another opportunity as well. So don't be, afraid to let that go. And if you want to have a bit of fun, then, buy things to have fun and buy things to invest. Like make sure you know how to separate the two. And, again, making a plan really helps you stick to that. And you don't want to just deviate off that. You don't want to get sucked into anything that's going on in the news or, what's happening on Facebook. Just don't be swayed by the crowd. And you're only going to get better with that. Again, it's time in the market. It's making mistakes and saying, all right, I should have done that differently next time. And that's just what's going to make you a better investor. But, you don't want to lose your collector inside you. You want to still have fun. You still want to enjoy the product. So I think just separating the two is probably the best option, and just sticking to a plan.
Yeah. I like that you said to not listen to the external noise. Have you had a moment in your investing journey where you have listened to the external noise and maybe sold something on a whim instead?
Of course. And it's worked the other way where I've probably held something too long. So again,
called MetaZoo.
Yeah. And again, like that's the journey. And again, we're not perfect, and I still make mistakes now, but from now until, when I first started and the journey from then, I make a lot less mistakes. I make better decisions when I invest. And it just comes down to experience. So you can't be hard on yourself, and you've got to accept the fact that we are going to make mistakes, and it's okay. As long as you learn from that, then it's not wasted. So I think that's just a good thing to touch on.
Whereabouts do you see TCG investing over the next few years? What direction is it heading? What does the landscape look like?
Again, it's looking at the wider economic, what's going to happen in the wider sort of vision. So, there's always going to be a big downturn that comes. I've still got my targets at 2026 for the next big one. So like I'm gonna base my thesis around what I believe is going to happen on the bigger picture, but I still think there's going to be a big window of opportunity coming in the next sort of 6 to 12 months where there's going to be a bit of a frenzy. And, all the pieces that are happening now sort of paint a picture for that to happen for me. When we see, One Piece doing well, we see Pokemon, the sets that are coming is going to be a big catalyst. We've got the Pocket game coming in that's going to allow people to play the game and be a lot more accessible. And, for those that don't like to go to the LGS or play with their friends physically, that's going to allow more people to sort of see the cards, play the game, and in turn that could bring, a lot more eyes and economic power to, trading cards. So there's all these catalysts I look at, and I always try and fit them in where we are in the larger economic cycle. So that all sort of still goes within, interest rates are going to lower, America and Australia and all the West, the UK, I think that's going to happen. So when you have that unwinding of the interest rates, people find more money, even though that means we're heading for bad times. People don't see that in the moment. So that's how I just like to look at things. And again, I see the windows. Again, I might not always be right, but I still plan. And that's my main sort of focus when I make decisions and when I'm buying and selling certain things. So
off the back of that then, are there any specific upcoming releases or developments within a number of TCGs that collectors and investors should be aware of now? Like you just talked about, you can see what's happening in the next 6 to 12 months. I'm coming to you as somebody that wants to invest and saying, hey, Charlie, like, give me the heads up. What should I be buying? What do you think?
You look, I think Pokemon at, like I said, retail or under is safe. But again, timing is going to become a thing where we're getting very close to a downturn, which is where people don't like to spend money. So again, it's that risk factor. It's like lower your risk, which means, lowest entry is better. And I think taking advantage of what I believe is coming in the near future, which is, a bit of a frenzy and a bit of a sort of an upswing in the market in various TCGs. And it's not going to just be trading cards. It's going to be crypto. It's going to be stocks. If we reach price discovery in those sectors, which they're all at all-time highs. Just to be clear, you're talking about a money frenzy. When you say a frenzy is coming, you're talking about a money frenzy and not particularly just a frenzy based on, for example, this Team Rocket set that's meant to be coming out. It's a risk-on frenzy, which means risk-on assets. We can put collectibles, we can put crypto, we can put stocks. And I think the land boom is going to continue. And that can be fueled by the lowering of rates where people are going to find spare money again. Whereas with the rate hike cycle, people sort of started getting a bit tighter and spending wasn't as prevalent with, the majority of those people that have loans and stuff. So yeah, it's just looking at that as a whole. There's a lot of exciting things coming. And when that marries up with that and could be, more government stimulus, it could be like, it's just about affordability when it comes to that and people finding the spare money to, put more into their hobbies and stuff. So I think that catalyst along with, better sets coming out could spark something of a frenzy or, nothing compared to COVID, I don't think, but it's still going to be, very noticeable. And that's something that I'm looking at taking advantage of. So again, there's always good times to buy and good times to sell. And because I'm spread across different TCGs and multiple TCGs, there's always opportunity somewhere. Whereas if you just thought of just Pokemon, you just can only take advantage of what's going on in that market. So that's another thing that I've sort of, have a bit of an advantage of. And again, most of that money spills back into Pokemon because it's a safe haven for me. What about Kickstarter and Kickstarter TCGs? Because you and I have had many discussions just around those in the past. MetaZoo was a Kickstarter TCG, found its success post-Kickstarter. Sorcery was a Kickstarter TCG. It was the biggest one, I think, at the time. And then Altered came out, a couple of months ago, and then that blew that out of the sea. And it's always an interesting, Kickstarter's almost like, if your TCG starts on Kickstarter now, it's painted with a tainted brush. Like we're waiting for one to succeed and really stand the test of time. Akora, was another one of those that did its thing and sort of fell off the wagon. Is Sorcery going to be the one? Is Alter going to be the one? Like even just, tell the viewers a bit more about Kickstarter and your involvement with games on there, because I know you've backed quite a few of them as well. Yeah, and again, like that was a big learning curve for me. We had that frenzy when MetaZoo come out, when there was, Grand Archive at the time, there was Sorcery, there was all these games coming out, some crashed, some were scams, others did okay, then died. But we've got to understand the actual data to look at with trading cards is, most of them aren't going to make it. So you're basically going to get a window of opportunity where, you can take advantage of if that's your intention. But a lot of people get really involved in the game. And again, it's an emotion thing where people can get swayed by the hype. I think it's just looking at something for what it is. Kickstarter is an opportunity. It is how some games get their start, crowdfunding to be able to, make their projects come to life. So there's nothing wrong with the actual platform and using that. But you just got to then look at, all right, who's behind the games? Are they capable of, standing the test of time or making a product that can stand the test of time? Those are the kind of questions you got to ask yourself. But, I've had to learn from, mistakes I made there. Some of mine did really badly. Some of mine did really good. So I just had to fine tune my strategy to, lower my risk. And again, that's going to come up a lot when I talk to people about lowering risk. And how I do that is buy a bunch of product, sell a bunch of product, when, have the hype phase or when people are buying the product. And that takes my risk off the table. And then I can hold the product longer if it's just an investment, or I can enjoy that product basically for free and, use that to either market the game if I really like it, or, share the product and just use that, even to create content. Like Alpha Sorcery, I paid $170 for, now it's $2,000. I'm not really going to go and spend $2,000 for a box, but because I've got those boxes sitting there that I, paid, $170, $180 for, I'm more inclined to open that for content. So
yeah, bro, I sold a bunch of those to some of my mates. Luckily, the two that I sold it to are two really good friends of mine, so I'm not mad about it. But I sit back now and go, like, that was probably $8 to $10,000 worth of boxes that I could have just put away, and I didn't put away. But I've changed my whole outlook on investing and collecting and things pretty much since our journey together started anyway, since I met you. So I'm sort of a product of your environment, to be completely honest. I've sort of pivoted the way I do things. Which Kickstarter TCGs, out of curiosity, did you do your nut on? Did you buy Nostalgics? Did you back that one?
Yeah, I did my nut on that one bad.
Yeah, that was because that popped off too, right? Like in terms of backers, that was massive. And everybody's like, this is going to be huge. And I was like, I'm going to buy a booster box. And I literally did. I got it and then I sold it on eBay like the next day just to basically get it out, because it was at that point in time too, like MetaZoo was still around doing its thing. And I was just like, I'm going to focus my energy into that. But again, it's the hype train for Kickstarter projects, I feel like, is a lot larger than your, TCGs like Magic and Pokemon and One Piece and things like that have been around for a while or have a big IP behind them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with those, because you got such a time between when the Kickstarter happens and when the fulfillment for product happens, and most of them get delayed. So you could actually miss that opportunity. And again, like the guy behind Nostalgics was credible. He knew people in the industry. He was trying to do the right things, but where he went wrong was he didn't hire the right people after to sort of make everything happen, because you can't do everything on your own. And like to distribute a game worldwide, it's a big job. And if you don't have the right people, pushing and marketing the game, well, no one's going to know about it, or people they're not going to be inclined to try it. LGSs won't carry it just because the awareness isn't there. And, is there enough, viability or profit for that business? And is the risk low enough to give that game a try? And I think especially in Australia, it was too expensive at the time as well. So all these little things that, went wrong with that game probably helped add to the, demise of it. But yeah, look, it's risky, very risky. Always, try and lower that risk as much as possible. And like doing what you did, probably a smart thing to try and, sell before that could happen. But again, it's a learning curve for me. I like to bring up Altered because I think they're very innovative in the space, and I think that's the direction that games are going to head in the future. So I like how they've, actually taken that step where, others haven't yet. And it's, it's risky because it's never been done. But I think, when you look at the team behind Altered, which is Equinox, they're a very capable team. They're not someone working out of the garage. They've got the experience. their ideas are great. People are jumping on board. I think that's real demand in terms of, the way that people are sort of, gravitating towards it and then trying, and it's actually real compared to the other ones where it was just a time where people were just speculating a lot. Again, looking at, is it a speculative time? Are these people in it because they like the game? Whereas we fast forward now, there's less of that going on. So it's more organic and real demand. So I think that's a big difference to look at as well.
Altered's going to be a really interesting one to watch because I don't personally think it fits into the trading card game niche the way we love and know it. I think what it's going to do, and if it does do it, is carve out its own sort of niche within card games, digital games, sort of there. I don't see it being one that's going to challenge the likes of, your Magics and your Pokemons that are there because they are tabletop card games, whereas Altered is basically a whole sort of new idea that other games could have done, but like you said, haven't done. So it's definitely one for any listeners out there that don't know what it is. Give it a Google and look it up and check it out. Kernsy's spoken about it a couple of times as well. So it's going to be really interesting to sort of watch because that's being distributed at the moment. I'm watching it sort of land in different parts of the world, which is cool. It hasn't made it down here just yet, has it?
Still waiting, yeah. But again, I think the team's capable. Whether they pull it off or not, I still think that's the right direction. And we really got to think about the new generation coming up and not that, we're a bit older. We grew up with tangible. We didn't really grow up with, digital. And they've married the two together well. And I like the fact that they got their own marketplace. It takes a lot of the scamming out of it in terms of, every card's identifiable by their QR. So all these little innovations are going to help, move things in the right direction. And you just can't really go a full digital just yet because you've got people like us that like the whole tangible items. So hitting all that market is a plus. Being sort of a board game and a trading card game hits more people. And being a game that isn't, focused on one person killing the other, it's a lot more kid-friendly. So like the net that they're casting is very wide and their marketing is very good. So in terms of them capturing market share, I think they've got a very good structure and platform to go off. But, whether they pull it off, they're going to have teething issues. They're going to have software issues, which is the digital part coming in where you don't have that with, tangible stuff. So there's all these challenges in front of them. But again, I think this sets a good precedent for other people to start innovating and start taking risks. Because at the end of the day, the people that are growing up now, the younger generation, they just want to be in front of a screen. They like digital, they like convenience. So that's a lot of value there that, people need to start really thinking about, even your Pokemon, your Magics, all those people that they are now. You got Arena, you got the Pocket coming out, you got the TCG online Pokemon game that's been around for ages, but it's taken those to the next level and innovating in that space, which is where I think they're going to capture a lot of market share in the future.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm keen to see what happens.
I love hearing you talk about like the newer generation and how the way that they collect and the way they view collectibles is obviously very different from us, the older generation of collectors. Very nostalgia driven. And what role does nostalgia play in terms of like our collectibles? We spoke about some really, really big sets before. Dean mentioned 151, Evolving Skies, Evolutions. But how big of a role does nostalgia play versus maybe what the younger generations, is it the flashy, gadgets, the tech that is more drawing them in?
Yeah, so I think from a business perspective, I think Pokemon know that the nostalgia is going to bring, the older crowd back and, the older crowd have money. And they're also the people that now have kids that want to share the hobby with them. We didn't have that growing up. So I think they know how to generate revenue in a sense, but they still see the importance of having to have the new Pokemon, the new games, the younger generation come up and give them cards to grow up with. That's going to set, the future up for the younger generation. So both are important, but Pokemon probably know that it's not as profitable to make these new sets with the newer Pokemon for the older crowd, which spends the most money. But then you got, apps with microtransactions that are huge. Like I think they're generating a lot of money for a lot of companies. So I think both of those two factors there are what are making them so much money right now. but you still need to understand that in order for the next generation to come up and continue buying and then be the 20, 30-year-olds of the next generation when they start working and having money, but those sets that we don't really like or resonate with are going to be the sets they want. So it's a lot of future planning there, which is what I like. So this can keep going on for years, well beyond our years. So I recognize the value in that, and I see why they're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a real emphasis on maintaining the communities across the board, maintaining that younger community of people, the older. I just want to ask you to kind of extend on that point in terms of, I know you've got a great Facebook page, you're building your community, the games are investing into those demographics. How important do you think community is in terms of TCG investing?
It's extremely important. And I think that you really need to pick a niche when before you start a community and really hone in on that, because you're just going to attract that type of person that you want. Whereas if you venture too far out into other things, you're going to really get a mixture of people that really don't sort of communicate well together. So I think really establishing what kind of platform you want to provide and be is, probably the key thing when you start a community. So knowing the direction you want to head in and the content you want to do, because it's basically like your bait. And like when you're doing certain things, you're going to attract those types of people, and you want to make sure that's the right kind of people that you want to attract. So yeah, I think one, community is very important. And the second thing is to establish what kind of content and what kind of community you want to create, because that's going to really give you, your idea of what type of things that you're going to put out there. So yeah, definitely important, definitely essential if you want to be successful in either a business or in the content creation space. So yeah, like again, it's having that plan and executing that plan, and don't veer too far off. And again, don't try and chase numbers, make sure that the quality of people is there over quantity. So yeah, just establishing that early on, I think it's going to make you, really hone in on, your community and what you're trying to build early on rather than trying to adjust later on.
Yeah. I love that, mate. Is there anything else in terms of investing that you wanted to cover off? Is there anything that comes to mind that you maybe wanted to cover before we move on?
Just the same things before. Like again, number one, manage risk. Yes, we need to make money, but always have a plan, to buy and sell and execute that plan when the time comes. Don't be swayed by the emotion. If you can't handle, euphoria or, when things are really bad, if you can't handle that, then try and stay away from it. Go off those pages, or like sort of try and block out, whatever influences, are prevalent, in that sort of scene, until you're better at managing that, then you can put yourself back in front of it because it won't affect you as much. So it's just there. It's really working on yourself. Like people really they forget to, like, you don't really emphasize on how important you are. And like, you as a person, how you can develop your own skills and that can really sort of marry into being a better investor or whatever your goal is. So I think, honing in on yourself and working on yourself is probably, just as important as things I pointed out. So that just takes time.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great advice. I think, in all honesty, we can probably, let you get back to what you need to be doing, because that was an hour of just pure bliss, bro. It was a really good insight to some of the things that you've been doing, some really good advice. As Kearns pointed out, behind you is solid proof of you putting your money where your mouth is. And I learned that about you early on anyway, that, you weren't just some guy with YouTube aspirations to say you should do this and not actually do it yourself. So you should be really proud of what you're doing, brother, what you're building out there. I think the community needs it. I think they're getting around you, and I think you're going to help change a lot of people's lives or steer them in the right direction in terms of, if you're actually going to invest in Pokemon, this is how you do it. And if you're not, and you just want to be a collector, that's okay too. But, definitely try and stipulate which one you are, because otherwise you do a Kernsey, you get stuck in the middle and you open Hidden Fates ETBs with a bottle of wine and just like burn money. Because you didn't even pull a Rainbow Zard, did you?
Nah, it's the Hidden Fates. No, I didn't pull it.
Yeah. No. So with all that said, brother, I just want to say thanks. Thanks again for your time. We really, really appreciate it.
No, and thanks to you guys too. Like, you guys are building something really important, and even for me, like as someone new in the content creation scene, to be given a platform where I can just sort of speak and tell my opinions or truths or whatever you want to call it. It's amazing, and I'm sure you guys are going to grow into something very big because I really love what you guys are doing. You get some amazing guests on, and again, I feel privileged that you guys have asked me on to be on the show, so I appreciate that, and thanks a lot. And yeah, happy to do this again anytime.
Nah, sounds good, brother. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it, boys. Take care.
Another good guest, man. I love. We're so lucky to have the people on that we get to have on.
He is such a great guy from a totally different end of collecting, the hobby.
Yeah,
It's an area I'm not very familiar with.
Yeah,
but just some really great insight there. And I don't know if you saw his face when I told him about the Hidden Fates ETB case that I opened, but there was a small disappointment.
Oh, for sure, bro. For sure. He was gutted. Even I was at that point. I was like, oh, Kearns, yeah. Wow, God, man. Why would you do such a thing?
Yeah.
But then he followed that up with a great point, like out of sight, out of mind. And I've done that personally with a bit of my collection, which we were discussing, as we set up the studio today. I'd put a bunch of booster boxes that I used to have on display are all now in storage so that they're just away. Because I did walk in at one point and go, oh, maybe I could just, sell that, get rid of it. I'm like, wait, no, I don't want to sell those.
Yeah,
I need to just remove them from my vision, and that's what I've done. But it was great to have Charlie on. Like I said, he's a friend of mine. I've spoken to him pretty heavily over the last sort of 6 months. Really got to know him. I love what he's about. I love what he's doing out there. It's something that nobody else is doing, and probably because a lot of people that are in that space want to keep those secrets to themselves and grow their own businesses. But Charlie's gone, you know what? I'm so happy with where I'm at and sort of ahead of the curve that I'm willing to share that information. And I, for one, am grateful that he's willing to do that and was happy to come on the show and do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you listen to the episode, really resonate with some of the things that he was saying, make sure you go check out his Instagram and his YouTube.
Yeah.
You said it, he started off with articles type things on his Instagram and short videos, and now you've got full 20-30 minute videos that he talks about investing.
Yeah, that's it. So all over socials, it's Cardonomics, Cardonomics. Just in case you don't know how to spell Cardonomics.
Did you get lost halfway?
No. I could have said Nomics if I wanted to, but it's just Cardonomics.
Yeah.
So he's on Instagram. His Facebook page is also called Cardonomics. His YouTube channel. We're going to put it all down in the description anyway. So check it out. And then while you are there, please do click on the SpeakPipe link and don't forget to call in for the next episode. We love hearing from you guys, so we're excited to dive through that. But that wraps up episode 12 for today, Colonel.
It was awesome. Thank you again to Charlie. What a great chat.
Have you got anything else to add?
Is it pizza for dinner tonight?
You're just trying to find something to add now. All right, guys, that is Wheels Up, and we are out of here. We will see you on the next one.